Nintendo is one of the greatest video game developers of all time. Their library of classic video games and franchises is second to none. But what happens when Nintendo releases a WarioWare get-together sized whoopsie? Well, that's where third-party games come in. But recently, as the Switch is getting older, third-party games have become more of a rare commodity. I don't really blame developers for not wanting to hold their game's performance back just to cram it onto a dying system. There are still some phenomenal third-party experiences out there, but they're becoming fewer and far between.
Luckily, the Switch 2 is out now, and many developers are already pledging their support for the console. So here's my top 5 third-party games I'd like to see on Nintendo Switch 2.
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is arguably the best game of 2024 in my opinion. I was a little nervous when the game was announced to be a first-person adventure, held by Bethesda. But unlike other Bethesda games, this one is based off of one of my favorite movies of all time. By being first-person, the game is able to stand out and offer a much more immersive experience than other games in the genre. The way the sound effects, art style, and world all come together really remind you that this is in fact an Indiana Jones adventure, first and foremost. The game also features a stellar voice performance by Troy Baker, so you never forget what character you're playing as. The game is packed with additional side quests and missions. You can collect medicine bottles to unlock health and stamina upgrades, and find a book scattered across the map will allow Indy to learn new combat mechanics. Additionally, there's collectibles and lore dumps scattered throughout the world, which help you piece together the game's story. Speaking of which, the game's story is very reminiscent of the original trilogy. Much like those films, Indy is searching for an artifact that he doesn't quite understand, but he knows it should be kept out of the wrong hands. You know what they say, if you give a Nazi a religious artifact, he'll probably want some world-dominating power to go with it. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is an amazing love letter to the franchise. While it is presented in a different format, it helps keep the spirit of the original films alive, without exploiting what made them great in the first place. But while Indiana Jones is busy grave robbing, I think a superhero game is just what the doctor ordered.
I told them I had concussion and they just gave me Spider-Man 2 for Game Boy Advance.
Spider-Man is one of the most beloved superheroes in the Marvel Universe, and is no stranger to video games. Back in the day you had games like Spider-Man 2 or Ultimate Spider-Man, which allowed players to swing around a massive open world, toss around waves of gang members, and save lost balloons. The best part of these games was that they were multi-platform, meaning you could play them on GameCube, PS2, and of course the Game Boy Advance. Looking at the Switch's library, it feels like there's a significant lack of superhero games compared to previous consoles. The most notable of the bunch is the Batman Arkham trilogy. But looking at the Marvel side of things, there's not much outside of arcade re-releases and LEGO games. Growing up as a DS kid, I always dreamed of having an open-world Spider-Man game on a Nintendo handheld. That's why I hope Sony will play nice with Nintendo and give us Marvel's Spider-Man. Now back in the day I would have thought this was impossible, but recently Sony has released a lot of their games on Steam, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. I'd love to see all these games come to Switch 2, but I would also understand if Sony wanted to hold one or two back to incentivize Switch players to buy a PlayStation. However, if we only got one game on Switch, I'd hope it's the first game. As much as I enjoyed the second game and Miles Morales, I still think the first one has the best overall story and side quests. But I guess if we don't get this game on Switch, I can at least hold out hope that the classic Spider-Man 2 will come to the Nintendo Online service. Call of Duty is a game franchise that hasn't been on a Nintendo console since Nelson Mandela was alive. So like the 80s. But back in the day you'd have Call of Duty games on Wii, DS, and Wii U. These versions were always watered down or remixed versions of their flagship counterparts, but they did a decent job of bringing the Call of Duty franchise to as many people as possible. That's why I think it's time Call of Duty finally made its way back to Nintendo consoles. Whether it's a new entry in the franchise or a remaster compilation, it would be really nice to see some sort of Call of Duty representation. But either way, I think it's essential that we get an entry with both a solid multiplayer offering, as well as decent offline modes. Activision could even remake the classic Wii and DS campaigns. It'd be a neat way to celebrate Call of Duty's history with Nintendo, and also help preserve these games in one way or another.
Well, I guess if Activision isn't going to put Call of Duty on Switch, I'll have to do it myself.
The Star Wars Jedi games are some of the best Star Wars experiences we've gotten under the Disney ownership. Anyone who's watched these films has probably dreamed of being a Jedi at one point or another, and these games help to scratch that itch. The games play very similarly to Uncharted, with a heavy emphasis on platforming and combat. You'll run along a multitude of branching pathways, and use all the powers of a Jedi to traverse large areas and fight powerful enemies. As you progress through the game, you'll explore new and familiar planets throughout the Star Wars galaxy. Throughout the game, you'll navigate the world and find many different routes and secret pathways. You'll also complete underground tubes and ruins, not dissimilar to Zelda or Tomb Raider. Along the way you'll find cosmetic items and stim upgrades, allowing you to customize your lightsaber, ship, BD-1, and of course the poncho.
You think it was because of your story that people played the first game? No. Poncho.
Jedi Fallen Order cracked the code on Star Wars games by offering an experience that made you feel like a powerful Jedi, while also leaving room for challenging bosses and level design. But whereas Fallen Order laid the groundwork for future Star Wars games, Jedi Survivor greatly expanded the game's scope by creating even bigger worlds to explore. The level design in Survivor is much more open than the previous game. at times feeling borderline Metroidvania. The worlds feel fine-tuned, like everything you run into serves a purpose and isn't just thrown in there to fill out the void. Much like the first game, you'll uncover new abilities, tools, and weapons, allowing you to traverse new pathways. You'll have to fight pirates, battle droids, and stormtroopers to survive. As you defeat enemies, you'll gain XP, which can be used to upgrade your combat and force abilities. The story of Jedi Survivor is also greatly improved, offering new twists and exciting moments that will have any Star Wars fan on the edge of their seat. Jedi Survivor gives you the tools of a Jedi and drops you into a cinematic world, allowing you to truly feel like part of the Star Wars galaxy. If only one game on this list comes to Switch 2, this game would be my top pick. The amount of secrets and encounters hidden across the world make this game one of the most replayable Star Wars experiences out there. Whether you're trying to find every last Force echo, or are just taking in the scenery, Jedi Survivor is one of the most immersive Star Wars experiences out there. If you've ever wanted to feel like you're truly in the Star Wars galaxy, this game is for you. Needless to say, I'm beyond excited to see where this series goes next.
At the end of the day, even if only one of these games made its way over to Switch 2, I'd be perfectly happy. There's more important things in life than Spider-Man games coming to Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, they're just video games after all, not a miracle drug. I had to be sure.